Okay, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how you can download and install the latest version of Android Studio. So we're going to open up a browser. I'm just going to type in Android Studio. So what we'll do is we'll install this and we'll get you up and running to a level where you can actually start creating your own apps. So we'll click on the link, and there's the link there. That's for Windows. I'm not too sure about for Mac. So we'll click on that, click on the little tick box, and we'll go ahead and start downloading it. So we'll wait for that to download, and it does say here that there's quick instructions on how to set up Android Studio on Windows. It just gives you a zip file, and you just extract that file anywhere on your computer, and you can just run it through the Studio exe file. You may need to set up your environmental variables, which is easy to do. We'll go through that later. So install your open up your zip file, and we'll extract that to my download folder. Click on OK. We can close that. Just minimize that, and we'll open up a. So there's a folder. You can put that wherever you want. I'm actually going to put that in my E drive, which is where I should have put it originally. So open that up and open up your bin file, and it's one of these ones. If you've got a 64-bit version, what you can do is you can click and drag that onto your taskbar, and you can run it through there. So we'll click on that and we'll run that, and it will open up our Android Studio. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to configure our Android Studio. So if we click on configure, you'll see that our SDK manager is missing. Your version may automatically know it's missing, and it may give you a link which you can click on, which starts downloading the SDK manager. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into just open up a new tab, and I want to type in Android SDK manager. Now I'm going to click on installing the Android SDK, and it's saying you haven't already downloaded the Android SDK, so we want to get the SDK for an existing IDE and download a standalone tools for Windows. So we'll just click on the button, download that, let that download. Okay, and now we can just click on that, run that. And here we go. So we'll just click on next. It detects whether Java SE development, if your standard development kit is installed, and it's picked it up. You should have this. If you haven't got it, you need to download it. It needs to be the JDK, not the SDK. So just click on next, anyone, whatever, and right, the install location for your SDK really needs to be outside of Android. So I'm going to install it on my E drive, straight onto, so E/SDK. So okay that. Oh, wrong location. Make new folder. Oh, we're doing. Right, E drive. Make new folder. SDK. Okay. And I want to download it into my E drive SDK. Next. Just click next, and it's going to pop all them files into that folder, and it's done. Now it's going to open up the SDK manager, which is really what we want to do. So we're going to click finish, and it's going to open up for us, and it's going to scan, and it's going to see what our latest versions are and whether we need any updates or So this is the latest version of Android 5 API 21, and now it's ticked all these boxes, so it's recommending that we download them all, which we will do. And it's also recommending we download the support library, USB driver. I'm also going to download, you don't have to, but I'm also going to download the Google Play services. What you can also do is you can also if you have an Intel chip, I'd recommend downloading this accelerator, this HAXM installer, which is the hardware accelerated execution manager, which will enable your emulator on your Android Studio to run a lot faster. If you haven't got an Intel chip, then I'm afraid you can't use that, but if you have, just click on it, tick the box, and when you're ready you can install all 20 packages. Now this is going to be a big download, so it may take some time. All you need to do is just click accept license, or wherever it says accept, just click accept and install, and it's going to download all those files. And you think initially it's going to not take too long, but it's actually quite a big file, so this may take some time. So I'm going to cut this video and I'm going to come back to it. Okay, it's almost done now. It's doing the last bit, and I was saying that the SDK AVD manager you're currently using has been updated. It's recommended that you close the manager and reopen it. So we'll just close that. Okay, that's alright, and close that. And I was saying one more package, which is this acceleration. Now, it's a good thing it hasn't installed actually, because one thing I forgot to mention is you need to make sure that your CPU, your processor is capable of virtualization technology. So you might need to look it up. If it isn't capable of virtualization technology, you can't use. You can download it, but you can't use it. It won't work. So if it is capable, then yeah, go ahead and download that and accept that. Install. It's a quick download and done. So we'll close that and we'll minimize this. And what we can do now is go to configure project defaults and settings. Sorry, not settings, project structure. Now make sure that your Android SDK location has been picked up, which it has done here. So that's where our SDK files are, and make sure that it's picked up where your Java development kit is located. Now if you haven't downloaded your JDK, then you should go and do that. You should have it, but if you haven't, like I say, go and download it. Also, if it hasn't picked this up, it may be because your environmental variables need setting up. So if this is blank, then what you may need to do is go to Start, go to Control Panel, go to System, click on System, go to Advanced System Settings, and on your Advanced tab, go to your environmental variables, and on your system variables you should have a variable called Java Home. Now if you haven't got that, just scroll down and have a look. If you haven't got that, then you need to click on New, and you need to call that Java underscore home, all in capitals, exactly as you see it. And you need to find the location of your Java folder. So in this case, it should default it to program files. If you've used the default locations, it should download it to these default locations. So go and find out where it is, do a search, find out the location, and all you need to do is just pop that location in there as it looks like there. So pop that location in there and then click on OK. Then it should pick up your JDK location. If it hasn't, then just navigate to where it is. Okay, so click on OK. So that's your SDK installed. Now what we can do is we can actually, before we start, what we can do is that if you've installed that, if you've downloaded that hardware accelerated execution manager, we can run that. So that being your SDK folder. So if you navigate to your SDK folder, and if you go to extras and Intel, and there's the hardware accelerated execution manager, just open that up, double click on the application, and we'll just walk through this. So just click next. Actually I think it's then okay, we'll click on next. Okay, I've already installed it already, so can change, but you may not get this because I've already installed it, but it may just be, you may not get this window, but it should go straight to this window, and it's going to ask, it's saying that the Intel HJXM reserves a portion of RAM when running, and you just need to specify how much RAM you want it to use. If you use too much, it may cause other programs to run slowly, so try the default value. If you find other programs start going jittery, just lower that value, but bear in mind value must be between 512, at least 512 megabytes. So I'm just going to use the default value and click on next. This will probably say next, because I've installed it, it says change. So, and that's it, that should be done. So we can click on finish, we can close that, we can go back to our Android menu, and now we can go ahead and start a new project. So what it's asking for here is just the name, your application name. You can call it everything you want. I'm just going to leave it as the default, and it may ask for a company domain. Basically this is just if you have a website, just put in your website. You can put in anything you want. For here I've put john.example.com. It doesn't exist officially, it's just a made up name. You put anything you want, and that will generate a package name, which is generally that backwards. So it'll automatically do that, and it may ask for a project location. Mine's defaulted here in my users folder under Android Studio Projects. So I'll just click next. Now it's going to ask you for the form factor your app will run in. Now I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this here, because it's reasonably important that you understand how this works. This API will determine this level of functionality that your device can use. The lower the number, it says here, lower API levels target more devices, but they have fewer features available. And by targeting API 14 here, your app will run on approximately 80–90% of the devices that are active on the Google Play Store. So all the devices that use the Google Play Store, 90% of them will be able to use the application should you continue from here. Don't worry about it too much, because if you select a too low a level, the lower you go, the more devices that can be used. So if we go to say 8, it's saying that every single device that accesses the Google Play Store will be able to use your program. But bear in mind, your program will have fewer features, so you won't be able to use things like some graphics and some animation and some fancy stuff that, to be fair, we're not really going to cover, because what I intend to do in my next tutorials is go through some of the basics. So we're not going to be using anything too advanced, so we can keep the API levels relatively low. We don't want to go any lower than 8, because we won't even be able to set up buttons. So if we go to say 14, and we use API level 14, which is the ice cream sandwich, the name that they gave it. So and here, I mean, it's almost 90% of devices. So if you were to develop an app or a game or anything, you wanted to put it on a Google Play Store, then 90% of devices that use Google Play will be able to use your program. Like I say, we're not going to put anything fancy in anyway. So, but if there are some features that make the running of the game or the application or whatever you're using a little bit smoother, it may, if you introduce those features, all it will do is say, it will come up with a warning and say the feature you've introduced is not valid on API 14, and all you'll need to do is just change the minimum SDK to 60 or whatever. It will tell you what level, what API level you need to change it to, and that's a quick fix. It's ever so easy to do, so don't worry about it too much. So generally, the lower the number, the more devices that can be used, but the less functionality your device, your program will be able to incorporate. So we'll just stick with API 14. And if we go to API, the latest 2020, there's no device on Google Play Store that uses the new Lollipop target. So, and even KitKat is quarter devices. So we go with 14. That's fine. That would be fine. So we just click next, and it's asking what kind of activity. And some of these will have pre-installed methods and classes in your program, but such as like the Google Maps activity, where you can create your own Google Maps app. But we don't want to do that. We want to do a blank activity, and just click next. Now it's asking, it's going to create a new blank activity with an action bar. In other words, an activity is basically a window. Look at, when you see activity, think of a window with an action bar. So the activity name, the name of the window, here it defaults to main activity. We're going to leave all this blank, and we just click finish, and it's going to, Android's going to build that all up for us. Just give it a few minutes. Here we go. First time it may take a while. And here we go. So this is our preview, and this is what we'll see on our phone or device, whatever you're using. And so if we look at these two windows here, this is our code window, our Java window, our main activity class, and this is our XML window, and this is the design view, and this will be our text view. Now, even in text view, you should see this window here. So if you don't see this window, it's because you need to either click on this preview button on the right side here if it's not already there, or go to View, Tool Windows, and Preview, and click on Preview, and that should come up, and that'll give you a representation of exactly what your application is at the moment. So this is a fully functioning program that we can actually run, and we'll go ahead and run it. We can't run it at the moment because what we need to do now is we need to go to Tools, Android, and we need to configure our AVD manager. Now, you may not have a device, a virtual device. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm just going to set up a new one. So you may see this window. So we want to create a virtual device, and we want to select, these are a list of devices that we can use. I'm just going to go with Galaxy Nexus. It's just a pretty standard window, and we'll click on next, and these are the images that we have on our SDK that we downloaded with our SDK manager. And like I said before, if you have an Intel processor and you select this Intel processor, it will run, and you've installed that HAXM installer, this will run a lot quicker because this emulator is actually quite slow. So I'm going to select this target, click next, and you can leave all this blank. You can play around with some of the buttons and see what they do, but you just leave it blank. You can change the name as well if you like. Actually, I'm going to change it. I'm just going to call it My Emulator. And click on Finish, and there's our emulator there. So we can OK that, and we can run the app. So this is a fully functional, Android actually generates a fully functioning app. Doesn't do much, but we can run it in our emulator just to make sure our emulator works. So we click on that Run App, and we should see this window pop up. It's asking us to choose a device. Now you can if you like plug your phone in to the USB, and then hopefully it will pick it up. pick up your device, and you can click on your device, and it will actually physically install the device, the program onto your device, and you can run the app through your phone or through your tablet or whether you connected. But we're just going to use the emulator. So launch emulator, click on my emulator and OK that, and it's going to launch the emulator. Now this can take a while, so once it's up and running, it's always a good idea just to keep it running in the background, because it takes a while to load up sometimes, especially if you haven't, if you don't have the Intel, if you don't have the virtualization technology and have that accelerated execution manager installed. So that's it, loaded. So just like a real device, it wants to be unlocked. So we'll unlock it, and there's our application. So that's exactly what we'd see on our device, and it will. You can click on it. It doesn't do anything because none of the nothing's actually. There's no functionality. It just says "Hello World." But these buttons, these home buttons and back buttons work, so we can use this as an actual device. And there's our application there. So we double click on that, and there we go. Okay, so that's the basics, just to get you started and just get everything working. And what I want to do is in some more videos is just show you how you can start adding things to your app, like buttons and images and text views, and start adding code. But I'm going to assume that you know a little bit about Java. It's not necessarily you have to be an expert. As long as you know some basics, like how to declare variables and maybe how to use the if statement or the for loop, or maybe create an object. But if you don't know how to do any of those things, you can learn these basics really quickly. There are some good videos on YouTube on how to learn Java in 30 minutes, and that's the basics. But that's really all you need to know, is some of the basics, just to get you going, and just to add some fun stuff. And I'll try and talk you through as simply as possible. I'll try and not get too technical, and hopefully we can have a bit of fun maybe and add some stuff and see how it goes. Okay, thanks.